Thank you, Judge, and thank you all very much for being out here, and I look forward to at least spending the next few minutes going back a little bit and talking about how we got here and the extraordinary leadership of Judge Alberts and the inspiration of Julius and his team many, many years ago. But I'm going to pick up a little bit on Ron's introduction and give you a little bit of my bias and to fill in a blank on the bio. I come to politics by the way of the private sector. I started right out of college, a small business, a wine store here in the Marina District in San Francisco, right near the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm very proud today there's 15 businesses, close to 1,000 employees. I say that not to impress you, but to impress upon you a fundamental point. I've always maintained an entrepreneurial mindset, a desire not to focus on who's to blame, but to truly focus on what to do. A need and desire not to manage problems, but to try to solve problems. A desire to take risks, to make mistakes in the process as a byproduct of those risks, but more important than anything else, to learn from those mistakes at peril of repeating them. The whole framework of the business model was to increase the number of tries, that mistakes are a portal of discovery. And so that framework I try to bring in the life of my work as I try to animate my work as a county supervisor for 7 years here in San Francisco, and then as mayor, and now my work at the state of California as lieutenant governor. A desire not to manage more efficiently, or as some in the lexicon of public service will say, fail more efficiently, but to create, as they say in psychology, the pattern interrupts to begin to substantively solve problems. Now, to do so, you understand intimately, requires a desire to change the order of things. And in the process of doing so, those with entrenched interest, those that have worked hard to advance the status quo as it exists, have strong opinions about any whitewaters of change. And that's exactly the headwinds we had to experience as it related to the issue of restorative justice model here in San Francisco, this problem-solving court now known as the Community Justice Center over the last 5 years. I want to, though, go back, connect dots, celebrate their success and your wisdom for all being here. In 2000, 2001, I started to notice a little bit about what was going on around me. As a business person, soon to be in public life as mayor, that the industrial economy in so many ways was beginning to run out of steam. That the old industrial mindset that had served us so well for 100, 150 years was beginning to give way to something completely new, something different. This notion of selling down your vision from one to many, this idea of machine thinking, factory thinking, mass production, the old steam engine construct of 1765, the notion of mass production, mass education, mass incarceration, one size fits all, standardization, was giving way to something very different. I saw the contours of this very directly in the business community. You started to see it in the media, early part of 2000. A guy named Craig came along with a list. I'll never forget being not too far from where we're sitting here today when Phil Bronstein was the head of the San Francisco Chronicle at the time, and someone honestly asked him about this guy Craig with the list. And I'll never forget listening, because people were just beginning to get a little concerned about what was going on in the newspaper business. But it wasn't what we know of it today. And I remember, I'll never forget Phil saying, "Oh, I know Craig Newmark. He's a friend of mine. We got this." Well, 79, you know this. I just read a report in The Economist about 2 months ago. It said 79 major newspapers in North America alone have gone out of business. The Chronicle is a vestige of its old self. They're holding on to their credit. They've adapted. But overnight, the entire business model was gutted. The old model overnight was gutted. Something new took shape. I remember a year or so later being here in San Francisco at the Moscone Center, our big convention facility, and a guy named Steve walked up on stage, and he came out with something called iTunes. None of us knew what it meant. In fact, it was a stone's throw away from the beautiful Virgin Megastore, the big record store, that still is struggling to find a tenant because literally overnight, the entire record industry was turned upside down. No longer were we buying albums to get that song. We were getting customized choices, not standardized, customized. All of a sudden, we're buying individual songs. None of us buying albums anymore. Overnight, things changed. You start see the same contours of that change back in 2002, 3, 4 with financial service industry. I had an uncle, great guy, Rick Newsom. He passed away a few years ago, but honestly, he'd be out of work in about an hour and a half. Got up early in the morning, would be on a second and third martini by 1. You know this person. You may know that person intimately. Career was radically changed by a guy named, he said, Chuck. You never brought up Chuck Schwab to my uncle. Screwed up the entire business model. He was a stockbroker, and you didn't have a choice. There was just 2 or 3 of them, but it was going to be $100+ for every trade, every transaction, until these folks came along at E-Trade and Schwab and discount brokerages. Now you're seeing pink mustaches everywhere you go. The share economy, Airbnb. Guy named Travis comes along and does what I desperately tried to do and failed as mayor, and that's uproot the taxi cab industry. He did it with an app called Uber, radically changing these old top-down hierarchical monopolies. Something radical is taking shape. We're going from something old to something new. Top-down is now being replaced with bottom-up. Boy, Obama got that right. That's why he is where he is today. Remember, change starts from the bottom up. Yes, we can. 35,000 self-organizing communities in 2008 came together across their differences in that platform thinking, not machine thinking. 2008, myBarackObama.com. He got it, and it got into the White House. Two-way conversations, not one-way conversations. The old broadcast model being replaced with dialogue, not a monologue. Why am I saying all that? Well, I'm saying it to connect the dot to what you are all about. This whole idea of flipping the pyramid. You've done that. What is a community justice center? What is restorative justice? It's bottom up, not top down. It's not one to many. It's not standardized. It's individualized. It's customized. You get it. You understand this. Your expression's unique. No one else has it. One size does not fit all. This notion of cultural competence, you understand in a nuanced level beyond the old rote phrase. Something radical is taking shape, and you, for years, have understood it. And people now are just beginning to understand it. It's not inside out anymore. It's outside in. It's side by side. The new operating system, it's your operating system, is about collaboration. It's about transparency. It's about openness. It's about increasing that connectiveness, because the real source of your power is connectedness. We're moving away from silos. What is the entire model you're about? It's connecting these dots. System that exists that has been fractured and decentralized, and so our centralized is now being decentralized and individualized. And that's an extraordinary thing. And it's a model beyond the model for criminal justice reform, from my humble perspective. These are the contours of something that is going to radically shape and reshape the way we govern in every respect. Bottom up, not top down. Old industrial model giving away. New metaphors, not machine thinking, but organic. Cultivate and coordinate, not command and control. Completely different language that you have been so powerfully part of. So this is why I'm here, to thank you for allowing me to manifest that thinking with the extraordinary leadership of Ron and others that had the courage against the headwinds of the status quo, that did everything to fight us, to say no to this model that told us what it was before we even advanced the idea, that we're for sure of its failure, not its success, that we're determined at every opportunity to undermine these principles, that knew that the existing model just needed a little bit more oil in order to operate more efficiently, when in fact you all understood something radically different needed to take shape. It's not reform per se, because that assumes you're using the existing ingredients. It's about reimagining a 21st century delivery system. And in consequence, thousands of lives here have radically been improved. Not just those receiving the benefit of this new model, but the community at large. And so I want to just thank you all. As a business person, one thing I learned is notion of best practices. Success leaves clues. And that's why I was really proud to go to New York and learn from that Midtown community corp model, learn about Red Hook and I guess the Bronx, and to start doing some homework about other systems across the country, and for that matter, around the rest of the world. And that's why I'm grateful so many of you from around the world are here to learn about some of the successes that we've experienced here in San Francisco. Final point. I had a really great conversation with a guy. You may not know him. You should. A guy named Ken Robinson. Sir Ken Robinson. And we're talking about the notion of leadership in this new paradigm. And the old leadership model, again, as I said, is command and control. You sell down your vision. You vote, guys like me decide. Yes, Your Honor. One-way conversations. Now giving way to something different. He said in 2004, it's a wonderful story. In 2004, something remarkable happened in California, in Death Valley. Death Valley is the hottest and driest place anywhere on planet Earth. It's in Southern California. He said something remarkable happened. 7 inches of rain literally fell almost overnight, never been seen before. And he said if that wasn't remarkable enough, in the spring of 2005, people woke up and the entire valley was carpeted with wildflowers. Turns out, he said, Death Valley wasn't dead. It was dormant. The seeds of possibility were planted years and years ago, waiting for the right conditions to come along. When the right conditions come along, success becomes inevitable. His whole framework and focus was a metaphor of sorts of leadership. Create the right conditions where success becomes inevitable. Isn't that fundamentally what you're all doing? Isn't that the work you do every single day? Creating those conditions where someone who's been in and out of the criminal justice system for half their adult life, all of a sudden experiences different climate, different conditions, where we can coordinate and cultivate opportunities to redirect that person, or that person to redirect him or herself to experience the kind of success that we all ideally want to manifest for that individual and for themselves. Not command and control, but climate control. Cultivate, coordinate, platform thinking, not machine thinking, not assembly thinking. It's an extraordinary model, yours, and it's an extraordinary opportunity to build on these models at scale. And that's what I hope this conference ultimately advances, because I am desperate to reconcile, as you are, the abject failure which has been our efforts to massively incarcerate our way to a safer society. I'll close with this. You're in California. In 1977, this is an exact number, we had 20,000 people in our state prison system. In 2007, we had 173,000 people. 20,000 to 173,000. You can't make this up. And you know, if you've read any of the headlines, we're under a court order to radically reduce the prison population in the state of California. It's an abomination. But what happened in 1977? Determinate sentencing, mandatory minimums. We are finally having a debate in this country thank you, Eric Holder and others, to begin to reconcile these things. We're having a debate about drug policy reform and rethinking and reimagining new approaches to this mass incarceration model. We're talking in terms of decriminalization, at least having a mature debate in this country, and it is long overdue and extraordinarily healthy. And you are part of the next part of that debate, the what to do if we're going to move in a different direction, the how question. We know the why, we know what, but the how question is truly the great challenge we'll face next, and you've been in the how business for many, many years. Thank you all very much. Congratulations on our great work.